Last time we checked in on Godzilla, he was teaming up with Mothra and Rodan to bring the smackdown on the menacing King Ghidorah. However, Ghidorah proved to be such a great foe, there was no way he wasn't going to come back for an encore. So today, we're going to look at Ghidorah's re-emergence as Godzilla's arch-nemesis, only this time, he's bringing a whole planet full of aliens with him.
Alert all units! Monster has begun the attack!
A new planet, Planet X, has just been discovered in orbit around Jupiter. 2 astronauts have been sent to investigate, and not only do they discover a colony of aliens called Zillions living beneath the surface, but they also encounter the horrible King Ghidorah. The Zillions plead with humanity to let them borrow Godzilla and Rodan in order to defeat the beast, in exchange for a cure for cancer. Humanity agrees, but little do they realize that it is all a cunning ploy by the aliens to take control of the giant monsters and use them to enslave the Earth.
According to American producer Henry G. Saperstein, when he approached Toho during the early development of Frankenstein vs. Baragon, which was originally supposed to be Godzilla vs. Frankenstein, he had the idea of turning Godzilla into a hero rather than a villain, even though Godzilla was already in the midst of his face turn following Ghidorah the three-headed monster. Saperstein co-produced Frankenstein vs. Baragon for United Productions of America, or UPA, and when that movie proved to be a success, Toho and UPA, or more specifically Tomoyuki Tanaka and Henry Saperstein, were willing to work together on more projects, including a new Godzilla movie that would act as a direct sequel to Ghidorah. Both studios agreed that an alien invasion storyline would work well, building on Toho's recent success with Dogora. Thus, the script was written by Toho staple Shinichi Sekizawa with direct input from Saperstein and UPA, while the film, which would be called Great Monster War in Japan, Monster Zero in America, and eventually Invasion of Astro-Monster everywhere, would once again be directed by Ishiro Honda with special effects by Eiji Tsuburaya and music by Akira Ifukube. Though UPA put up 50% of the funding for the picture, the budget was slightly lower than the previous Godzilla film, so plans to include a grown-up Mothra as part of the final battle were abandoned early in pre-production. As part of the joint production deal, an American actor was signed on to play one of the 2 male leads. Nick Adams, who had previously appeared in Frankenstein vs. Baragon, plays Glenn, while the original Godzilla's Akira Takarada plays Kazuo. For his part, Adams, whose career was admittedly on the downslide, does an enthusiastic job in the part, reflecting his positive vibes behind the scenes, where, unlike other American actors in Toho movies, he was commended for his professionalism and warmth towards cast and crew. Takarada also plays his role pretty well, though Kazuo's classist attitude towards his sister's boyfriend Tetsuo, played by Akira Kubo, is really off-putting, albeit pretty authentic, as far as I know, for Japanese cultural norms of the time. Several other actors returned from Frankenstein vs. Baragon in new roles. Kumi Mizuno plays the sympathetic alien Namikawa, who gets brutally executed in the film's most shocking moment. Dr. Sakurai is played by Jun Tazaki, who had previously appeared in Gorath, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Mothra vs. Godzilla, and Dogora, and the leader of the Zillions is Yoshio Tsuchaya, a veteran not only of several tokusatsu movies like Godzilla Raids Again, Battle in Outer Space, and Varan the Unbelievable, but also of several seminal Kurosawa films like Yojimbo and The Hidden Fortress. Finally, the ubiquitous Yoshifumi Tajima plays this general. As for the suit actors, the great Haruo Nakajima returns as Godzilla, Shoichi Hirose returns as King Ghidorah, and Masaki Shinohara once again plays Rodan. The suits were all upgraded, with Godzilla getting the biggest changes to soften his look, but due to time and budget concerns, some of their scenes had to be recycled from earlier movies, especially when they are wreaking havoc on the populace. One inclusion that was added during filming is the now infamous moment where Godzilla celebrates the first defeat of Ghidorah with a low-gravity dance known as the Godzilla Shie, which is based on a popular manga at the time. It was apparently actor Yoshio Tsuchiya's idea, but Eiji Tsuburaya embraced it wholeheartedly, even going against the protests of Haruo Nakajima. Director Ashiro Honda didn't like it either, but he never expressed that opinion to Tsuburaya out of respect for the man's work. Love it or hate it, the Shia victory dance is now one of Godzilla's most iconic moments. One cool effects trick is when the saucers emerge from Lake Myojin. They filled a thermos bottle with liquid nitrogen and carbon dioxide and blew it up underwater. There's additionally one very brief, almost unremarkable shot that boggles my mind. Is that a tiny rear projection of people running inside a crumbling miniature? If so, that's really impressive. Invasion of ASTRO-MONSTER released in Japan in December of 1965, where it earned a domestic gross of about 210 million yen in theater rentals, making it one of the highest earners of the year. The American release was delayed until 1970, where it played as a double bill with War of the Gargantuas and earned somewhere around $3 million at the box office. The American dub is pretty good, with very few changes and no random stock footage spliced in, although a lot of Ifukube's music is replaced. If you don't like subtitles, I'm not opposed to recommending the dubbed version this time around. The movie's legacy is pretty strong too, even though it tends not to rate very high on Godzilla fan favorite lists and professional critics are unfairly dismissive of it. It essentially sets the template for several Godzilla films that would follow in its wake, most notably the deliciously over-the-top Godzilla Final Wars, and it proves that Godzilla can easily work in stories involving aliens, something that would become a regular occurrence even to this day, with the upcoming legendary Godzilla movie, Godzilla x Kong Supernova, heavily rumored to feature the big guy with the even bigger shoulders, Space Godzilla. Now, as for Invasion of Astro-Monster, looked at specifically as a science fiction film, this movie is an evolution from the likes of Battle in Outer Space and Gorath, but it also fits in nicely with the Western direction the genre was going in. It owes a lot to Hollywood movies like Forbidden Planet and Fantastic Voyage, but it also feels like it's laying the groundwork for more sophisticated films like 2001: A Space Odyssey. I'm not saying there is a direct connection there, I highly doubt Stanley Kubrick or Arthur C. Clarke were big Godzilla fans, but there are plenty of similarities in tone, style, and cinematography that seem to predict the aesthetics of the following era of sci-fi cinema. Also, like 2001, Invasion of Astro-Monster pulls off some remarkable special effects, despite having a much lower overall budget. The effects aren't always stellar, the saucer on the beach is a definite sore spot, but when it's good, it's great, like with the rocket ship landing on Planet X. Then when you throw Godzilla, Rodan, and King Ghidorah on the screen, it's just that much more awesome. Speaking of Godzilla, I love the evolution of his character through little mannerisms, like when he does some boxing in the middle of this fight. I also want to highlight the new Godzilla suit, the Daisenso Goji suit, because I promised I'd talk about my favorite Godzilla suit when it appeared. Sure, he looks friendlier, setting the stage for the rest of the Showa era, but it's the most flawless iteration of the suit so far, lacking the wobbly lips, weird eyes, or mushy facial structures of previous suits. Unfortunately, you don't see much of it here, because Godzilla has only 5.5 minutes of total screen time, the lowest in the entire Godzilla canon. That said, The weakness of the movie isn't that the human-alien drama takes away from the Godzilla stuff. It's really the opposite, as much as that pains me to admit. Don't get me wrong, both kaiju battles are well done and entertaining, albeit with too much repeated footage, but it feels like somebody spilled some Godzilla sprinkles on top of my alien invasion sundae. The battle on Planet X is short, and the final battle is tacked onto the end as a fourth act, following the wrap-up of every other plotline. From the perspective of a Godzilla movie then, it fails in its primary task of, well, being a Godzilla movie. Still, it is a pivotal part of Godzilla's transformation from villain to hero. This is the first Godzilla movie where the story needs to contrive a reason for him to fight humans. Godzilla and Rodan only attack under the mind control of the aliens. Before that part of the story, humans don't seem even remotely worried about Godzilla, because by this point, he is no longer the antagonist. In fact, the antagonist isn't a kaiju at all, despite what the title says. It's aliens, who follow the dictates of cold computer calculations to try to steal Earth's water supply. And if you look at the movie as an alien invasion movie rather than a Godzilla movie, it's a great little film that deserves a better reputation than it has. Therefore, even if the Godzilla action is sorely lacking, Invasion of ASTRO-MONSTER is absolutely a sci-fi classic. And that's all for today, my fellow Earthlings. What do you think of Godzilla boxing and doing a victory dance? Let me know in the comments, and while you're down there, don't forget to smack those like and subscribe buttons. Thank you for watching, and until next time, when I'll finally get to talk about Roger Corman and one of his most iconic creature creations that isn't a talking plant, this is the Unapologetic Geek, telling you to never be ashamed of what you love. As long as you're not hurting anybody.
Escape into the future, into that dimension we've never seen. All of you, join me in escape!